Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And welcome to a new world of risk containment and cost avoidance. The subject being around the production part approval process, both with suppliers and internal. But this webinar is driven by several conversations I've had recently about supplier PPAPs being used in lawsuits. Uh, it's just an area that I don't know if a lot of organizations understand their risk and how to mitigate that risk. So I thought it'd be worthwhile to share it today. We have a great mix of attendees across multiple industries, aerospace, consumer products, food products, medical device, and more from over 15 countries, which is great. And we have a very large mix of OEMs and small suppliers. I'll do my best to try to address issues of both big and small companies as we go through. Little housekeeping. The event will be recorded and available for viewing afterwards. If interested, we can also schedule a private event for your executive team. This is not a software demo, but there is software involved. If you want to learn about that, just let me know. But your phones are muted. Please use the question area for questions. We do have time allocated for that. A copy of this presentation can be downloaded right now during the event. On the GoToMeeting bar, you should be able to see some documents there that you can download now. If you have any problems with that, let me know. And a certificate of attendance will be provided if you need that for any CQEs. The news is all over. I mean, automotive recalls, brakes causing fire, food harming pets, baby toys that are killing people, baby dressers that are killing people, FDA recalls. There's a lot going on this. And I know that lawyers asking for failure mode and effect analysis isn't new, but what's changed a little bit is, and this is a comment that started this whole thought process for me. I had someone tell me that anytime we go into a product recall or a product liability meeting, they ask to see the FEMA, which they've been doing for a while. But now, if it's a purchase part, they're saying, show me the supplier PPAP. And they know that the big companies have deeper pockets than the small suppliers. So they're looking for basically bad PPAPs that were approved. And when I say bad, I mean missing critical characteristics, severity, identifications are low. I mean, it just, if you go through it. So for everyone on the, I think it was everybody attending today, it's something your executive team needs to be aware of it. And especially for companies that almost buy everything. There's some medical device companies I chatted with earlier today's event. And they say, look, we're just really just buying an assembly. Your risk is even higher. So that's why the focus was on the PPAP submissions today. And because we had a bunch of people from a bunch of different industries, of course, is your company regulated? And depending on what industry, there's a different spec. But in general, yes, a lot of the attendees are regulated. But the comment was, but we don't do PPAP or APQP. We have certificate conformance. We do first article inspections. We don't make high volume parts, so we don't really need this automotive PPAP things. So I think the questions you got to ask is, do you and your suppliers have well-defined processes? And I don't mean the manufacturing router that we put together so accounting and can estimate, the time and the money, and scheduling can schedule jobs. I mean beyond the router. Do you and your suppliers know the risk? Where are they? What do they look like? And for those risks, do you and your suppliers manage those risks? Whether you call it a control plan or not, but this is more than just inspecting key characteristics of the part. So, well, how do you know if you know those answers? If you know your risk, look at your recalls, look at your warranty, look at your scrap costs by part number. And that's a big part, by part number. And do a review. I mean, what happened? I mean, did we know what that risk was and we missed it? Did we not know about it? Those are the questions that I think are important for organizations to start looking at. you've seen some activity on the Boeing 737 that's been on for a while. Yesterday, Boeing announced they're fixing engines on 7,000 jets after a fatal accident probe. So aerospace is one of those industries with, we already do that. We have first article inspections, we have new product industries, and we don't make high volume parts. But the aerospace adoption of 9145 and 13004 shows an awareness for the need to go beyond, can we make at least one part well mentality? And that's good. I always found it interesting that the one piece mentality was used to justify, I don't have to do good job planning to ensure compliance. We don't make that many. But my argument is this: the planning should be the same regardless of the production run. And that's kind of why low volume parts cost more. Now, here's the challenge and the tagline on the webinar. My experience has shown and verified over and over with multiple companies, relying on standalone, non-integrated spreadsheets to make such a critical business review and planning process is a very, very bad idea. So whatever term you call it, NPI, APQP, whatever industry you're in, whatever acronym you use, what we're trying to figure out is, how do I design, prototype, try it out, build it, and service it? Now again, automotive, aerospace, medical device, industry, food, pick an industry, it doesn't matter. Every one of the larger OEMs that I work with in those industries, they all point to problems in the supply chain as their highest risk. And the further down the chain you go, the higher the risk. The other thing that's challenging in all this is every industry is pushing engineering and the supply chain for shorter time to market. If we don't have a lot of slack and there's not a lot of time to do things, we got to get them right the first time. And again, standalone spreadsheets is not the way to do that. A recent study by L&S Research talks about, is NPI that important? Well, if it's short time to market, the biggest item is negative impacts is delayed product launch. So yeah, it's kind of a big thing. Higher costs, it impacts profitability, kind of a big thing. So yeah, there's a lot of data showing this, but here's what I want to share with you. Teams that are trying to do this, who have no system, are more likely to be really bummed out, really dissatisfied with their ability to work together, to collaborate. Emails and spreadsheets and meetings are not letting the teams quickly gather feedback from every participant. It's kind of a mess. And design teams spend a surprising amount of time every week looking for files and other non-productive activities. Now, companies that have moved forward with investing in some kind of software system are doing a little bit better. There's some challenges with it. We'll talk about that. But in general, the data has shown over and over that people using general purpose software, spreadsheets, K drives, standalone project management tools, don't do as well. So is your company at risk? Again, we saw those Google searches or news things: infant deaths, food poisoning, medical device failures. How many people have changed their opinion about Monsanto products with all the current lawsuit activity? So part of what we need to explain to the organization is, yes, there's dollar amounts, yes, there's cash that the financial people care about, but there's also a branding issue. And high profile recalls have a very strong negative impact on the brands. Now, again, if your company knew the risk and did nothing about it, that's just bad business. But I don't want a bad PPAP from your supplier to get approved because you need to ship the parts. And then later that shows up in a legal business review and suppliers told you about the risk and you did nothing. That's a different story. But the brand's the brand. And so what do we do? we need to find out if your company's at risk. And I'd recommend find out right now by performing a cross-functional internal audit of your PPAP approvals to see how you're doing. And I would be surprised if you don't find a lot of them. I'm not going to guess on a percentage, but a lot of them that get approved, not when they were submitted, which frustrates the suppliers, but weeks after. And they get approved quickly because purchasing is calling and saying, hey, I can't ship these parts unless the PPAP's approved. Try it. I think you'll be surprised what you find. But the other thing that I mentioned in the intro is companies that have now said, all right, warranty, recall, costs, these costs we're looking at, let's take that to the part number level, which really hasn't been done much, and say, all right, let's look at the part FMEA and look at it. I mean, the severity. Did we say it was really low, but it turned out to be really high? I mean, were we off? Well, you know, if this happens, nobody's going to get hurt. Oh, somebody did get hurt. Occurrence, were we off on that? It's like, the chances of this, it's never going to happen. Bummer. It looks like it's happened a lot. Looks like it might be on 7,000 airplanes. And detection. Did we know about it? I mean, did the control plan say check it and we missed it? Those are all real eye-opener reviews that I'd strongly recommend you do right now to see where your company's at. Now, this is a very important slide for big and small companies. PPAP, production approval process, is not a QA thing. Supplier PPAP is not a QA thing. We talked about legal already. You got to protect the company. We talked about marketing. You got to protect the brand. Finance, don't go down a whole cost of quality discussion with them. Just talk about stuff they know and they track right now. What were our warranty costs? What were our recall costs? What were our scrap costs? Link them down to the part number. Engineering, you got to help out. You got to provide the data that makes this efficient. Purchasing, you got to make sure you've defined the supplier expectations, and you've got to make sure that your company is being responsive to the suppliers. This is far beyond negotiating price and contracts. This is, you know, if I call my buyer and say, look, I submitted this PPAP thing 3 weeks ago and I haven't heard anything back, you need to help. Operations, you got to tell us how the suppliers are doing. And quality, yes, there's a role for compliance and continuous improvement. But here's another question I got asked last week. You know, John, I agree with this. This makes sense, but I'm having a hard time getting management's attention. They don't read my reports. I sent them an email about this, but you know, they don't care. And my response is, no, I don't think you can assume they don't care. I think they do. And the only way you're going to find out is to physically get out of your seat, go out and talk to them face to face. Ask their opinion, ask their ideas, ask them for help. Legal understands legal issues. Marketing understands the brand. Finance understands pay me now, pay me later. But you know, we might not be talking to them in the ways that make sense. So ask for their help, ask for ideas, ask them what you're trying to do. Because the supplier PPAP benefits are pretty good. I mean, that is the process, proven process, by the way, in decades of use, that gives us confidence in suppliers and their production processes. It keeps us from getting bad parts into our facility. And it makes it easier for us to talk to them about issues and problems and, I mean, reducing time and saving costs. But, you know, if we don't use terms that accounting gets and we start using cost of quality, they're going to, I don't even know what you're talking about, I don't care. But they understand warranty. You know, if we talk to engineering about things that aren't engineering related, that's kind of why they tune out. So go out and talk to them. And the goals, supplier PPAP goals are pretty straightforward. Hold the supplier responsible for their ability to produce parts that meet our spec. Now, our part of that has to include assure that those PPAP reviews are actual reviews. And again, that's the risk I'm referring to. And I'm going to repeat this over and over. We need to connect warranty and scrap costs to the FMA review to reduce the reduction of it. Now, again, That can be existing parts, that can be new parts, but all this thing about how well are they good documents, are they bad documents? Well, if you have a part that's producing really good stuff, I mean, no warranty, no recall, that you still want to review that FMEA, because whatever you did in that one is probably working. It's a lesson learned, and you should probably replicate it. Now, all right, here's all the IT challenges that I've been hearing. You know, is this an ERP, a PLM, a quality management system? You know, what software does that go in? Well, first of all, that's the wrong question. Again, you need to go out and ask your people about their processes and then review software. But trying to stuff PPAP into some software that we already bought just because we bought it already, that doesn't work. You know, stuffing standalone spreadsheets and K drives, trying to stuff them into SharePoint because SharePoint's free, or worse, we just spent millions of dollars on this big PLM app, and so we're going to put it in there. But all you do is put it in folders in there, because without a coherent review, these records are now going out to the lawyers. Now, there's another issue, and this is another one I want to really try to explain. We make parts for the supplier's view, and they do. I mean, most suppliers don't have design, but some of these larger apps that were intended to help support this from engineering view, I had one vendor say, well, John, you know, we looked at these software companies, and this is a supplier, and they said, well, first you start with the DFMEA. He raised his hand, he goes, we don't do DFMEAs. And the software vendor stopped. He said, well, if you're not doing a DFMEA, well, again, that's why suppliers are a little different, and the thought's a little different. But the goal is simple. I want something that's better than spreadsheets. And by the way, I've heard this over and over last year, but if it gets too complex, I'm going back to spreadsheets. So this is a manufacturing map that I drew on a grease board, having a conversation with a CIO. And I was just trying to articulate where we're at. You know, again, asking where does it go is kind of a bad question, but let's just go with the Wayback Machine. Accounting got computerized first because we couldn't get any of the reports on making and losing money for 90 days after the month closed. So we computerized accounting. Accounting came back and said, whoa, we got way too much money in inventory. So then we started doing a better job in inventory. Engineering came to play. We gave them computer-aided design. That was great. We gave them PDM, product data management, so they could vault and keep track of what they were designing. That was a good step. PLM showed up and said, we're going to put some workflow in this. So they're kind of going pretty well. The plants kind of raised their hand and said, look, we'd like to have some help on scheduling and executing, reporting what's in those routers. You know, I made 30 parts at op 10 today, so you guys can keep track of that. And even the marketing and sales guys got some good support with, you know, CRM and you know, tools to be able to do that. But still, for some reason, a lot of this quality stuff is floating around in the spreadsheet world. Now, again, I'm not trying to be negative on any one of those tools. They all have good reasons. They're all built for a reason. They are what they are. But if we double click and go down into the engineering and quality connection, again, this is where the suppliers came to me and said, well, look, we make parts, we don't design them. And again, that's correct. So one of the things I want to tell you is, if you're a customer or a large customer, don't try to force a software design for OEMs or any company that designs systems on companies that make parts. It never works. They won't use it, and they don't want to pay for it. I mentioned earlier, you know, a lot of the software tools on the high end say we start with the DFMEA. We don't. In fact, just a little side note for suppliers, they get frustrated because they went to training and they said, well, you start with the DFMEA and then you build, well, my customer won't give me the DFMEA. That's a whole nother subject for another event. But this is really important because, again, the tools that were designed for the research centers, the tech centers for designing systems are phenomenal. They're really good. They've been getting better year after year after year. What I'm trying to articulate is it's very difficult. In fact, I haven't seen anyone take one of those large systems and push it down into their supply chain to use it. So a survey we did a while back, and by a while back, I mean a couple years ago, 85% of the people we talked to, and this was across OEMs, tier ones, small suppliers, what do you use to do FEMA's control plans, process flows, and blah, blah, blah. The majority were using spreadsheet, 85%, regardless of how big you are. So what do you like about that? Well, I mean, Excel is great. I mean, it's easy to use. It's flexible. I mean, I can do anything you want with it. I love spreadsheets. In fact, I had one guy said, look, I love spreadsheets. Spreadsheets will always be my friend. But, you know, it has problems. And yeah, it's flexible and you get all the forms you want. It's already used in a lot of companies. But, oh, man, you know, I'm trying to use a spreadsheet that a guy that just quit created. And it's got these V lookup tables in it. I'm not sure what that is. I mean, there's no documentation. I mean, it's a cool spreadsheet and it works kind of nice, but I don't know how to use it. Or oh man, I sorted by one column by mistake, not the entire thing, and everything's out of whack. Or again, depending on your company, as these things get bigger, they're not good at big data. The other one was, this was written on a newer spreadsheet version. I don't have it. So yeah, there's a lot of problems with it. One of the ones that I really found hard to believe, but you know, the person telling me, I believe was telling the truth. There was a VP of quality in a very large organization that said we hired 10 co-op students last year to help in this area. None of them, 0 out of 10, used or knew how to use a spreadsheet. And I said, come on, that can't be true. Everybody knows Excel. And that might have been true a while back, but it's not true today. Now, databases, yeah, they're a little bit better, but there's some negatives with it. Data integrity is better, security is better. You know, these VLOOKUP thingies that Excel is using is now on a lookup table. Everything's linked across all the forms. I can't break it. I can get better reporting. I can get multiple users. I mean, it's good, but there's a con as well. You're going to need a database expert to develop this thing, you know, and some admin time to support it. You know, the suppliers are, look, I'm not buying those things. It's too expensive, and I don't have time to develop my own. I have a full-time job. You know, I had another large tier one supplier that's been trying to do a solution in Access for 3 years. It's tough. And what the supply chain was telling me is, look, I need an inexpensive point solution to help do my job better, solve the problems I'm having with spreadsheets, help me author and manage documents better. But again, don't make it too complicated, because if it's too hard to use or I've got to set all this stuff up I don't care about, I'm going back to Excel. So the idea is, and you'll see solutions out there that can do it, is best of both worlds. You know, put it on the cloud. So, you know, I just got a text from my boss and I need a quick update on a document. I'm on the road or at home or at the airport or at the hotel. I don't have access. Yep, give me access to do it. Make it secure. Have admin and all that stuff do it. Get rid of all the negatives on the database solution we talked about. So a simple map might look something like this. And when I say simple, you know, a better document authoring tool. I mean, if you connect it to your ERP or PLM, that's great. But is there some way we can get something to your suppliers, a tool that's better than spreadsheet, and do a better job? And I think it looks something like this: a part list, a project where they can keep track of whether it's PPAP submissions, internal or to you. Some of the stuff's optional depending on what industry you're in and what records you need. But the biggest thing the volunteers told me about was, I need a part list, I need my key characteristics, I need it all connected to my process flow, PFEMA, and control plan. And by the way, one of the things that would be really cool is an action button that says, for all the PPAPs going on right now, for all the things that, can you just give me a list of stuff I have to do like today or this week? That button alone brought smiles on suppliers' face, because again, trying to do that in a K drive or whatever is really difficult. So that's kind of what a map up might look like, but it really doesn't define the process yet. Process, PPAP submission process, how hard can that be, right? I was with a group of suppliers, and we were talking about, do we put workflow in an app like this? You know, do we need that? And I said, well, let's just use PPAP submission as an example. So I go to the grease board and I do a process flow based on one of the vendors telling me what they did. And I said, okay. I asked the second supplier, I go, is that how you do it? And the second supplier goes, no, that's not how we do it. Third supplier, without asking, goes, I don't do it that way. In fact, I have 3 different ways in my company because I have 3 different customers that want it done different 3 ways. And then after that, one of the other ones said, wait a minute, I got a better one. I have the same part under 3 different revisions under PPAP for 3 different customers. So here's the conclusion. Do I need automated workflow to make this easier? And the answer is no, I don't. What I do need is a place that I can click on something and say, show me everything assigned to me. I'll take care of the other stuff. Humans are better at that flexibility than hard coding workflows. I mean, in general, purchase orders usually drive the PPAP process. And it's usually part number revision level driven. You know, this is where engineering, you got to step up to the plate, because if you can send a PPAP request with your product characteristics, that's huge just to start from there. You know, bubble diagram, export the characteristics and send it to the vendor. You just save them a tremendous amount of time. Whether you share the DFME or not, that's another subject. It'd be great, but that's a different subject. So the supplier fills out the forms and submits the paperwork, and then we do document review. One of the things, again, is a pet peeve of suppliers is document review is slow and cumbersome from the customer back to me. Someone full, you know, don't send me anything until you're all done. Someone partial. Partial, I think, is better. Send me it. I'll give you feedback as we're going through it. The whole resubmit is a mess. You know, how you do that and how you put that together. So basically what we got is a global supply chain working with several customers across multiple markets, and it's a mess with Excel, and stuffing those spreadsheets in SharePoint or PLM folder makes it worse, regardless of what industry you're in. The idea of engaging your suppliers to make sure they have good processes, they know their risk, and they have good ways to control it is all we're talking about. So what would a recommended solution look like? Get it database driven, get it out of Excel. I mean, if your company's having trouble maintaining data in these spreadsheets, it's time to put them to rest. You know, I also, it was too hard to learn. You know, I used to buy that. You know, Excel is Excel, but after hearing the VP of quality telling me that the co-ops, the college kids coming in now don't know Excel, I don't think it is that hard to learn. You always use spreadsheets. Yeah, I know. I get it. But, you know, just because you use a screwdriver as a crowbar or a shim doesn't make it the right tool for the job. You're working on a budget, go ahead and use a spreadsheet. But when it comes to a critical business process in looking at our products, looking at the risk, looking at how to minimize it, get it out of it. You know, the other complaints I think I already mentioned, speed. You know, I've had people at FEMAs that are unbelievably large. I didn't even think they could be that big. Say, you know, it takes minutes to even open the file. And again, security. One of my other notes is I know that some companies have gone down this path and they charge a supplier to get access to it. I strongly recommend against that. So if we get into a database world, there's a lot of new things we can do. There's a lot of new reporting and analytics we can do. What are the top 10 issues I need to know about? What are the actions? Oh, by the way, the right side of the FMEA that's always blank, that never comes to life, the action items. Again, that's difficult in Excel. Getting the database is a little bit better. And then the questions are, well, what are the actions? Are they adequate? Are we getting better? Are we getting worse? I mentioned the due date report. Simple and easy out of a database, difficult in Excel. And I mean, you can start doing all sorts of stuff. You know, show me my RPNs by product, by process, by operation, by failure mode, by cause. This is where you now have the ability to start taking financial data and tying it back into the FMEA. So a supplier PPAP software, when I say that, I mean a database. It's going to help them meet your requirements. It's going to improve how well they go through document management and authoring them, especially if you send them a characteristic list. That helps a lot. And it will reduce the demands placed on your supplier's resources by reducing their time and costs associated with the PPAP package. Help the supplier help you. Theoretically, we're all doing better. We're all smiling. We get better product reliability, reduce our risk in the supply chain, warranty costs go down, everything else go down. I told you it's not a software demo. It's not, but I do have a solution that refers to or does the things I've talked about. If you'd like to know more about that, let's talk about it. But I do want to make sure we have time for Q&A. So let's see if we got any questions in here yet. Let me paraphrase these a little bit. I almost agree with everything you said. That hurts. How do I get my customer to understand the challenges? This is kind of like it's kind of the same thing as getting your internal management to work with you. Work with them face to face. I don't know if a PPAP for every purchase order is the right approach. I don't know if partial submits are better than waiting for the last minute. I mean, can we use a family of PPAPs versus every part number? You got to talk to them about it. Most customers, if they understand they're doing something to you that's increasing your cost, we'll try to work with you on it. Another question, explain the PPAP audit again. What were you suggesting? Oh, when we're talking about going out and looking at them, in the automotive sector, just FYI, IATF audits had 400 major and 6,000 minor findings on control plans, just control plans, mostly caused by non-integrated spreadsheet errors. You know the oops, we talked about those. I put in the PFEMA, I forgot to update the control plan, other way around. So I kind of went off on a tangent there, but the audit meant go out and look, and right now I'm just saying supplier PPAP submissions. Go out and look what they sent you and look what you approved. And I just had a flashback to something that I want to share with you. I had an owner of a small company tell me that his PPAP submissions, he did one. If he got another part number, he went onto those documents, changed the part number, and resubmit it. Because I do that all the time. They never read what I send them. That's the kind of thing that I want you to look about. Another question. What if our supplier does have design authority? Good question. I kind of implied that most of you have design authority. If you're using a supplier with design authority, they do need to do a DFMEA. And one of those larger enterprise things that were dying, for Systems Tech Center would probably be a good fit for them. One caveat, and I got in an argument with a client last week about this. Well, those big apps, they automatically take DFMEAs and push it into PFMEAs. Bad idea. Bad idea. When I asked them to show me what they're talking about, their perception was, which was wrong, their perception was, I take this column and this column that has all this engineering words in it, and somehow the software automatically, magically rewords it and stuffs it in one column in the PFMEA. It doesn't work. You know how it works? You get people together face to face that design the parts and are going to make the parts and talk to each other. I've tried to explain cost of quality to the CFO and got shut down. Now what? Don't explain cost of quality. Don't bring it up. They don't care. It's an interesting subject, but it's irrelevant. Just focus on what they know and they count. Warranty, rework, scrap. Don't explain the rest to them. It's not important. If you can clearly articulate how doing a good supplier PPAP is going to reduce warranty, reduce recalls, scrap, and rework, you're done. You don't have to go beyond that. I'm going to paraphrase this question. It's a long one, but I think what he's asking is, what if we're not doing any supplier PPAPs today? How do we get started? Go slow. You know, again, connect it back to, you know, where do you start? Start with the high warranty scrap reworks of vendors. Start there, because that's where you just told the CFO you're going to save the money. So let's say there's 3 of them. Let's do PPAPs with 3 key suppliers. You don't have to automatically throw on us. And by the way, this is where some of the larger apps get in trouble. Well, we're going to have the ERP system trigger an event for every purchase order, for every purchase part. No, stop doing that. You're sending out thousands and thousands of PPAP requests that you don't have the capacity or resources to review. So start slow. And again, sit down, work with the vendor face to face. Don't just mandate it and walk away. It puts your company at risk. I think we have, let's do a couple, there's a couple more coming in. This one says, we're an OEM, we design large medical devices, and we use one of those large PLM apps for DFMEAs and design. Are you suggesting we need something else for your suppliers? The short answer is yes, but it depends. I mean, if you give all your suppliers a free license to log in and use the software, it might work. If you give them access to the DFMEAs, that would be great. So maybe, but most companies don't, because it's too expensive to give access to 1,000 suppliers. Now, just to repeat, what I have seen is these large apps now, you know, we'll put it in whichever app name you want to use, and they're coming in from email, and the engineer now has to take the email, get the files out of it, and upload it to PLM. So what we've really accomplished is nothing except irritate the engineer by doing non-value added labor, or the QA people, engineering or QA people, by being a file transfer mechanism. And this is where the engineers are frustrated, because faster time to market. We got to get these things done. We got to, yeah, I know, but I got to do all this. Anyhow, no, it doesn't work. So your answer is yes. I believe that you need to have a combination. All right, I think we got, well, there's only 2 more here, so we should be fine. Our suppliers hate the PPAP process. They tell me all the time. Why should they care? All right. Think of this from a personal view, and it's almost the same as the vendors. Their frustration is most likely from spending a lot of time and energy trying to do a good job with little or no feedback from you. It's no different than you getting frustrated by working the weekend, late nights, trying to get all this stuff together, and it goes nowhere. So unless your suppliers know that the PPAP's important, that you're going to use it, and it helps communication, it's not going to work. If you don't care, they don't care. And another thing, I've heard this over and over and over. If you're waiting till purchasing calls and yells at you because you can't ship, you're doing it wrong. The vendor knows it, you know it. All right, we got one more in here. Let's see what we can do with this. We are in the food industry. They don't use PPAP. We get certificate of conformance and test results. Do we need PPAP? This is very similar to the slide I had in there about the aerospace transition from first article, new product introduction, to APQP and PPAP. If you're in an industry, and I showed you several at the intro that are, food industry's got a lot of recalls in them. If you had a recall, then I recommend you do this audit. Did you know the risk and miss them? Did you even know the risk? And I mean food generation, process, and raw materials. And I know it's like bulk materials in automotive. We're not talking about parts, but processes. Think of it this way. If all you're relying is on a certificate of conformance, that's all the data you got, are recalls going up or down? Now, you probably know that because the finance department knows that, but what you don't know is why is it getting better? Why is it getting worse? And almost like the suppliers hate PPAP process, it's kind of the same thing. If you don't really care whether you can do anything with what they're sending them, then why even ask for the certificate of conformance, and why do you have one on file? Okay. That kind of wraps up the event. Again, I appreciate everyone attending. If you have any questions, my email is jmc@bproso.com. You will get a follow-up thank you email that will have a copy of the recording attached. And if you weren't able to download the document, we can send it out to you as well. Again, thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.